This week, HP expresses interest in making their own SteamOS powered handheld. We'll talk about it. Plus, ChimeraOS 48 releases with some interesting new updates. And what's going on with Junk Store? I'm recording this video on March 27th, 2025, and these are the most interesting stories this week. If this is your first time here, my name is Gardiner Bryant. You can get subscribed and hit that like button to stay up to date with all the fun stuff we're doing here. And now, let's get into the news. All right, so first up, let's talk about this, because this is pretty big news. HP are interested in making their own SteamOS gaming device, and I think that this is really cool. Now, I'm citing Gaming on Linux here as my primary source because apparently this has been removed from XDA developers. But this seemed to be a discussion about Windows handhelds and the issue with Windows on handhelds, and it looked like HP's senior vice president and division president of gaming solutions, Josephine Tan, concurred with the thread. Josephine said, "If you look at Windows, I struggle with the experience myself. If I don't like it, I don't know how to do a product for it." Tan continued, "If I'm buying a handheld, I want a very simple setup. The minute I turn on my handheld, it will remember the last game I played. In the Windows environment, it doesn't." Gaming on Linux reports that Tan was directly asked if SteamOS would be something they'd be interested in including in an HP product, and their answer was simply yes. Guys, this is a huge deal. HP is an absolute behemoth in this space. And so the fact that the senior vice president and division president of gaming solutions at HP takes such an exception with Windows is awesome to see. And hopefully that means we'll see more SteamOS powered devices coming from other manufacturers soon. And given the fact that Valve is going to be releasing SteamOS to the public soon, TM, Valve time being what it is, I think that this is a real possibility, and having more competition and more innovation in this space is a good thing, I think. I don't know. I'd love to hear your thoughts about this or any of the stories that we're going to cover today down in the comments. And speaking of SteamOS, let's talk about ChimeraOS. This is ChimeraOS 48 to be exact. This was released just a few days ago here. And this is really cool because this update now includes support for the Radeon RX 9070 and the 9070 XT GPUs. It also added support for the ROG XG Mobile external GPUs. But I think the most interesting thing here is expanded support for launching games through physical media. Now, what does this mean? Well, there's been a trend recently of emulation machines and even something like the Mister coming with support for NFC readers, something like this, where you can, you can tap like a credit card or your phone or something like that. So by taking a card like this, you could hypothetically print like a label for this, say, Super Mario 64 or whatever. You could write a unique identifier to this card, and then you could take your card and tap it to the NFC reader, or insert it, if you will. Then the operating system knows that there's a unique key here that represents Super Mario 64 or whatever you want to play, and it will launch the game for you. So it has this reminiscence of a card or some kind of physical media, if you will, which is really fun when you're trying to do a more authentic feel for your gaming setup, right? Especially in the living room. So the fact that ChimeraOS supports NFC readers now, that's really neat. I love that. And then you can have a small collection of these NFC cards that you plug in or you connect or attach or whatever. Basically, you just scan it and it works. It's super exciting. And they're also supporting physical media and the MIG flash dumper. Yeah, so being able to support all of these is pretty neat. And ChimeraOS, fun fact if you didn't know, is like kind of the basis, the genesis of SteamOS 3, which I think is really cool because ChimeraOS, as far as I know, was the first like gaming focused distro to use Arch as its base. And Valve kind of took that idea and ran with it with SteamOS 3. Not a bad thing, just an interesting point of comparison, because Bazzite, one of the biggest name in non-SteamOS gaming Linux device operating systems, is running on Fedora, or Fedora Silverblue, I should say. So I don't know. I think it's really cool that ChimeraOS is still innovating and adding new stuff to their operating system, because I don't know. ChimeraOS is one of my favorites. I really love Chimera. I should actually build a Linux gaming setup that has NFC reader capability, because I think that would be cool, and ChimeraOS would be like the way to do it. Leave a gamepad emoji down in the comments if you'd like to see something like that. All right, next up, let's talk about System Shock 2. System Shock 2 is a game that I played a very long time ago, and they just recently announced that System Shock 2 25th Anniversary Remaster is coming from one of my favorite studios, Night Dive. Night Dive has been behind some of my favorite boomer shooter resurgences. You have stuff like Turok 2, Star Wars Dark Forces Remaster. They've got Rise of the Triad, Power Slave, Blood, Forsaken Remastered. So much here has come from Night Dive. Night Dive has really done a bunch for the retro remaster scene, and their most recent announcement is System Shock 2. System Shock 2 is a game that I have played many times, and it was the first like true horror game that I ever, sunk my teeth into as an adolescent. And it was terrifying to me as a teenager. But it was awesome. I really loved the aesthetic. I really loved the sci-fi setting. And Shodan was positively one of the best villains in gaming up to that point, from my perspective. I really love this game. And I'm super duper stoked that Night Dive is bringing System Shock 2 to the modern era, and it's not like a remake, it's a remaster. I'm much more inclined for the remaster, where it's using like original source code, or at least it's trying to stay as close to the original game as possible without updating the mechanics too much. I just think that this is going to be really cool. This is coming out, when is it? June 26th. So yeah, I can't wait. All right, next up, it's time for the deals of the week. And this is a segment of the show where we talk about the bundles and deals that are going to save you money while helping you grow your library. Now, first up here, we have Humble Heroines. This is a Humble bundle, and it looks like 7 games for $12. So just a little over $2 a piece. We have Pathfinder Wrath of the Righteous Enhanced Edition, Darksiders 3, Beyond Two Souls, Control Ultimate Edition, which just had a pretty big update, if I remember correctly, Pseudo Regalia, Thief of Thieves, and Kill the Crows. Now, I'm excited to try Beyond Two Souls. It's been a long time, but I remember that having like pretty good reviews back in the day, and it was a PS3 exclusive, so I never tried it. But I've already got Control, which I thought was pretty fun as well. And if you use the link to buy this bundle that I have down below, you'll be helping this show grow with no additional cost to you. It's an affiliate link. And if you use my link, thank you. Next up, let's take a look at the Amazon Prime gaming stuff. There was a new drop this week. There's not a whole lot here that excites me. Legacy of Kain Defiance is now available, which I'll probably claim. Then there's Siberia: The World Before, Dark Deity Complete Edition, and I'm going to skip over any of the Prime gaming stuff or the Epic games because I'm not interested. And I think actually Mafia 2 was the last release, as well as Saints Row the Third. But yeah, I'm definitely going to be claiming these. So pretty exciting. There's usually some pretty decent games over on Prime Gaming if you have an Amazon Prime account. All right, let's move on. Next, we've got the Nexus Mod app. This is now Stardew Valley preview, and this is pretty exciting because I've been talking about the new Nexus Mods app for quite a while. I feel like it's been over a year at this point. They've been doing a lot of hard work with an open source client that should be making a big impact on the way you manage games, mods, I should say, inside or outside of Steam. Stardew Valley is one of the most popular games on mods or Nexus Mods, and so the fact that you can now manage your mods through this app on the Steam Deck, even cross-platform, I think this is really cool. And this is probably how Emily's going to start managing her mods on her Steam Deck, because right now she's kind of doing everything manually. She has to drop to desktop mode a lot, and that just kind of sucks. At least without a mouse and keyboard and an external display setup, which she does not do. She doesn't care to do that. So yeah, this makes me really happy. Now, the way this works is that you can manage your mods for Stardew Valley just by downloading and installing this app. And it also has a few other games that you can manage them, but they're kind of experimental at this point and they're disabled. So you have to go in and enable those other games to be supported. Cyberpunk 2077, and I think Mountain Blade is one of the other ones. But at the moment, you can install hundreds of mods through the Nexus Mods app for Stardew Valley, and you don't have to do anything special. And it actually has a bunch of really great features that you can use, including loadout management. It has health checks that gives you guidance on possible issues between like compatible mods, and you can even group mods into collections and enable or disable them very easily. So yeah, I'm pretty stoked about this. I'd love to hear your guys' take. I know that Nexus Mods is a bit controversial for some legitimate and illegitimate reasons, so I don't know. Let me know your thoughts down below. Next up, I wanted to take a look at Emudeck here. Now, Emudeck is one of the coolest ways of managing your ROMs on your Steam Deck. In managing not just your ROMs, but your emulators and other like tools that you might need when doing emulation. So the first big change here is that you can actually pick your level of integration with big picture mode. Either it's going to be the Steam ROM Manager, which gives you the highest level of integration, or you can use Emulation Station Desktop Edition, which has a lower level of integration into big picture mode. I prefer going with the highest level Steam ROM Manager, because what that lets you do is set up specific controller profiles and specific like performance profiles for each game. And that's done through big picture mode's UI or game mode's UI. Emulation Station, if you run your games through there, you really only get to set your controller configuration and performance profile for Emulation Station, and then any games launched through Emulation Station will inherit the profile of Emulation Station. So I tend to prefer the Steam ROM Manager integration. However, some people don't, and it's pretty cool to have that level of customizability here now. They also are talking about an improved BIOS checker, which should select your firmware or your BIOS for your emulators. It should at least detect them when you have them installed, and it should do so more reliably. There's broader support for bringing your own emulator, including Citroen, which is a Switch emulator. You can also install Azahar emulator, which is a 3DS emulator. And there's Windows support here too. But because I'm petty and I hate Windows, we're going to skip right over that. Now, this is interesting. One last thing. If we pause it here and look, it says Emudeck Retro Library, and it has Emudeck Store, Nintendo 3DS, Nintendo 64, and the question is, what is this, right? Like, what is coming soon? And these look like the collections that you have in Steam in big picture mode. So what are these? I don't know. One last thing coming soon. We don't have details on this. So I'm really excited to see what's coming next from Emudeck here. I think that this is going to be very exciting. Let me know down in the comments your thoughts on this. All right, now we get to the big topic of the week. And I just want to like lay this out there so everybody knows I've become friends with Junkstore since I started using it and talking about it on the channel. And I will say that I tend to give developers the benefit of the doubt when it comes to technology, and people give me a lot of flack for that. I don't really care. You can tell me that I suck or I'm stupid in the comments. That's fine. But I do want to mention that I'm not going to jump on any hate bandwagon, and there has been some bandwagoning against Junkstore for some of their decisions. So let's talk about this. Junkstore, the next generation. This, if you missed it, Junk Runner announced that they were going to release Junkstore through Steam. I didn't think that that was actually going to happen because Valve has a policy of not allowing applications to be released on Steam that modify Steam itself. That was the case. Valve actually said, no, you can't release Junk Store on Steam. And they had started setting up a store page for it, and then Valve nixed that. It didn't actually get released on Steam, and it didn't impact Junk Store's releases through Decky Loader, right? Like, that was entirely separate, because they've been planning to have a standalone version of Junk Store to come out for a while. Now they're finally talking about this new iteration of Junk Store, and this new version is a complete rewrite of the entire Junk Store stack, as far as I understand it. It's going to be paid software exclusively, and it's not going to be open source. Now, as someone who has released a video game like to retail as paid software, and as someone who has also made that source code open source, I can't say I completely agree with this decision, but I also kind of understand where they're coming from. I just don't really like the idea of closed source software. But the thing is, this is a complete rebuild of Junk Store from the ground up, according to their post here on Reddit. They also are saying that they've invested about 5,500 man hours into this, which I believe, based on some of the conversations I've had with the main dev here. Now, if we scroll down, we can actually see that there are a bunch of storefronts that you can integrate. Now, this new version of Junk Store is actually going to be completely independent of Decky Loader. It's using a new way of loading the code into Steam, and you're going to be able to run it side by side with Decky if you have Decky installed. So there's a bunch of new features, including the fact that you'll be able to write your own custom scripts and be able to make your own loaders, essentially, or stores, I guess, like support for different stores. I think that this is really neat, and most of the infrastructure is going to be provided for you through Junk Store, which is also very neat. They've also included a bunch of screenshots, and they are looking for people who want to actually test. Now, there are early access registrations that they have available, and these are paid early access. Now, overall, I think this is a really cool thing. It looks like this new version of Junk Store is going to have a lot more features and a greater capacity for actually loading alternative storefront games into your Steam Deck. But there's still a bunch of things up in the air and some unanswered questions that I think I'd really like to get Eben on the show to talk about here in order to kind of nail these down and put some fears to rest. Because there are a few comments here that are unanswered in their thread. I don't know. I'd like to get the word out. I've been a big proponent of this. In fact, around the end of last year, I did a video about Junk Store and how you can use it to install epic games on your Steam Deck. And that's not becoming obsolete, because you can still have like the open source original Junk Store, and you can still use that to install epic and whatever games on your Steam Deck. But this is going to change some things for the way people have been doing it before. There's also the fact that there are other alternatives like Heroic and stuff out there, which I'm a big fan of as well. So I don't know. I'd like to see how this all shakes out. I'm interested to hear your take on all of this, and let me know down in the comments. So I think that's everything I'd like to talk about in this video. I'd like to encourage you to help support the show if you can over on Patreon. I'm talking about Linux and gaming news, and YouTube is punishing me for it. My CPM has dropped through the floor because I've been talking about Linux gaming, which is a niche of a niche. And so if you'd like to help support this show, you can use the links below to become a member. You can get your name listed over here like these folks have. And with that said, thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one.